On September 23, 1880, a guy named David Lang was just strolling through his fields in Tennessee when, out of nowhere, he vanished into thin air. There was nothing around him to trip over, just wide open land with no trees, fences, or even a rock in sight. His wife and kids were watching from their windows as he walked home, and two guys in a buggy also saw him disappear. So, panic set in immediately. Could it be a sudden hidden sinkhole that swallowed him? But when the family rushed to the spot, the ground was solid, with no holes and not a trace of where he could have gone. His wife had to be taken inside while search parties combed the field. But there was nothing. No footprints, no disturbed soil, no answers. Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. But no one saw or heard from David Lang until a year later. His young daughter, who couldn't let go of him, stood in the exact spot where he had disappeared and called out to him. And then it happened.
Help me.
A faint, desperate voice echoed from nowhere. Help me! She ran for her mother, who also heard the eerie cry for help.
Help me.
For days, they kept returning to the spot, listening to the ghostly whispers of David Lang. They were growing weaker and weaker until there was complete silence. Did some mysterious portal between dimensions open? And did David step inside? And here's where it gets even stranger. Some say the grass in that spot grew unnaturally thick and lush, but no insects or animals would go near it. Others swear that nothing ever grew there at all. It turned into a barren patch of land forever cursed. Whatever the truth is, David Lang was never seen again, and some people still avoid visiting the field. But don't worry, you don't have to avoid the area, as the story is most definitely just an urban legend. It looks like the whole story might have come from one well-known hoaxer from the 1880s, who probably invented the David Lang story as part of a lying contest. Over time, the tale became a piece of local legend. Another mystical disappearance supposedly took place in Prussia. On November 25, 1809, in Perleberg, a man walked into an inn, ordered dinner, and vanished into thin air. It was Baron Bathurst, a British diplomat traveling under the alias Baron de Coe. He was running away from Napoleon's spies. After writing for hours in a private room in the White Swan Inn, he stepped out and headed for his carriage. But when his assistant arrived moments later, Bathurst was gone. News of his disappearance didn't reach England for weeks, and when it did, his wife, Philida Bathurst, rushed to Prussia. Together with a search party, she was scouring a nearby river and every corner of Perleberg. Then, strange clues began appearing. Bathurst's expensive fur coat, worth a fortune, turned up hidden in a stable. Weeks later, two old women scavenging in the woods, miles from Perleberg, found his pantaloons. A stable hand at the White Swan Inn, August Schmidt, became a prime suspect. His mother had stolen Bathurst's coat, and a woman from a nearby coffee house swore that Schmidt had chased after Bathurst that night. So, he probably took the life of the British guest. But as a lump sum was offered as a reward, false leads and rumors flooded in, and it was harder and harder to learn the truth. Philida Bathurst refused to give up and went to Napoleon Bonaparte himself, hoping to hear some answers, but he denied that it had to do with him. To this day, Benjamin Bathurst's fate remains a chilling mystery. Writer Mike Dash, who did his own investigation of this case in 1990, came to the conclusion that people were just adding mysterious details to it over the years. In reality, someone just took Benjamin's life that night. Over a century after Benjamin's disappearance, in a completely different part of the world, a man named James Tedford stepped onto a bus, took his seat, and then somehow vanished into thin air before reaching his destination. It happened on December 1st, 1949, when he was traveling back to Bennington, Vermont after visiting his family. Witnesses on the bus swear he was there the entire time, sleeping peacefully in his seat. But when the bus reached Bennington, his suitcase, his unfolded map, and even his bus ticket were still on the seat, but Tedford was simply gone. The last time anyone saw him alive or not was at 4 p.m. Remember this time. This eerie disappearance wasn't the first or the last strange event in what locals call the Bennington Triangle. This area is famous for unexplained vanishings, sort of like the Bermuda Triangle on the ground. Between 1949 and 1950, multiple people disappeared under bizarre circumstances. Tedford went missing almost exactly 3 years after a young woman named Paula Weldon was last seen walking near the same area. It was also December 1st, around 4 p.m., when 18-year-old Paula stepped out of her dorm at Bennington College. She told her roommates she was heading for a hike on the long trail. A local man later said he gave Paula a ride and dropped her off a few miles from the trail. She was dressed in a bright red coat. Paula spoke with a few hikers before venturing into the wilderness alone, and then she was gone. The police and her devastated father were really trying hard to find her for 4 weeks, but failed. Whispers soon spread that she had just run away. Paula's father was sure that she had a secret boyfriend, a man who either lured her away or took her life. But there was no evidence to prove this theory. The local tribe believed that Glastonbury Mountain, which lies in the heart of the Bennington Triangle, was cursed and full of restless spirits. So Bigfoot or some unknown force could have caught those missing people. Each of them disappeared in the late afternoon, between 3 and 4 p.m. 2 of them were wearing red, and not a single body was ever found. Some believe it was one person taking lives in the area, but the targets were too different in age and gender to fit one pattern. Others say it all happened because the terrain here is pretty rough and the winds are strange and severe. But winds can't possibly take a person out of a moving bus, so the mystery lives on. On July 18, 2007, Barbara Bolick set out on a walk down her favorite trail in Montana's Bear Creek Overlook. She knew the trail like the back of her hand, and she had a backpack filled with food, water, and even something to protect herself from wild animals. She was hiking with her family guest, Jim Ramaker. As he later remembered, the hike was going just fine when they stopped for a bite and met 2 young men. After parting ways with them, Barbara just walked 20 or 30 feet ahead of Jim on the trail. Jim paused for less than a minute. Then he looked up and found no traces of Barbara. He scoured the trail, but he couldn't find the woman, her backpack, or even footprints leading away. He rushed to the nearest people he could find, construction workers at the trailhead. They hadn't seen her either. Rescue teams with dogs and helicopters investigated every possible hiding spot, but they found nothing. And dogs couldn't even pick up Barbara's scent. Now it wasn't clear if she had been there all day at all. If a wild animal had gone after her, there would be signs and sounds of struggle. She could have fallen into a crevice, but Barbara was afraid of heights and super careful around them. And she wouldn't just run away from her family, as her passport, ID, and her beloved pets remained at home. Her disappearance remains a mystery.
That's it for today. So hey, if you pacified your curiosity, then give the video a like and share it with your friends. Or if you want more, just click on these videos and stay on the bright side.